I remember the morning like a photograph left in the sun. Edges curled, colors washed thin. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever faced betrayal, hit like and subscribe, because what happened next will shock you. My name is Mariah, and that day my father's house felt too small for the secrets it kept. Light cut through the kitchen window in one honest line. Dust motes lifted like tiny coins. On the table was an envelope heavy with intent, sitting on top of his cracked reading glasses. He'd used those glasses to read maps of places he never went and bills he always paid. The envelope made the house feel like a room where the walls had ears. Veronica moved through the kitchen with the casual confidence of someone rearranging sunlight. "Mariah, it's not the time," she said, hand on the oven door as if warmth could make things right. Her voice was practiced, the tone of charity that asks nothing of itself. When she smiled, people leaned in without thinking. At the funeral, the words were ordered, like guests at a table. Condolences rotated like casseroles. People hugged me with the soft desperation of those learning how to hold a hollow space. Mr. Ellison, the lawyer, wore a suit that seemed made to hold small betrayals. He had lenses that widened his eyes and softened his face. He said, "There's been a will filed," and the floor under me tilted in a way I couldn't name. "We'll need to schedule a formal reading," he said, voice practiced. Veronica sighed a kind of relief that looked like entitlement. Julian, my stepbrother, folded his hands and smiled with the kind of ease money teaches. He paused, paper shifting. "There are multiple documents, an original will and an audio memorandum," he added. Audio. The word felt like a small, bright blade. My stomach clenched. Dad had left a voice behind. The idea of his voice outliving him, telling truths he couldn't carve into air, felt almost sacramental. That night the house breathed thin and close. I found my father's books in the desk where he kept screws, stamps, and small tools. I found a flash drive taped under the drawer and plugged it in. "Mariah," he said at the start, his voice rough with age. He spoke shyly, as if apologizing for words he'd kept from saying. "I need you to listen to the law," he said. "There's a sealed copy with Mr. Ellison. But if anyone hides the will, play this in front of them. Make them hear me." He named names, remembered a summer at the lake, and said the house should be kept for me. His voice broke once. I didn't tell anyone immediately. I sat with the flash drive like a small, heavy relic. I wanted the world to do the decent thing on its own, to pull the sealed will and let law be the scaffold. Instead, life was teaching me that law and people do not always speak the same language. 2 days later, Mr. Ellison called us to his office. The blinds there were tilted to keep light measured. The air smelled like old coffee. He put an envelope on the table and tapped it as if it were a drum beat. Veronica's fingers brushed mine like an apology that wanted applause. When he opened it, he read with measured calm. Accounts, bequests, then a clause that made him pause. "It's noted the original audio memorandum is to be authenticated and, if necessary, played at the probate hearing in the presence of all beneficiaries," he read. Julian's jaw tightened. Veronica's smile didn't falter, but something in her eyes shifted like weather. Outside, rain began. I kept my hand over the flash drive like a talisman. Mr. Ellison's words dangled in the room, like a verdict in waiting. Veronica suggested lunch, an appearance of togetherness. She spoke of dividing things fairly. I watched her hands, the way she smoothed a napkin, the way she arranged a fork. People who plan to take more than their share learn small gestures like languages. Back home, the house seemed to listen. I wanted to trust process and law. That night the phone rang. It was Mr. Ellison. He sounded clipped. "There's been a complication," he said. Complication, a soft word with heavy teeth. Veronica's eyes met mine across the kitchen. Her mouth was small and precise. "Maybe it's better to wait," she murmured. I felt something in me harden and lengthen, like winter setting in. I thought of my father's recording, him asking me to make them listen. I thought of the envelope on the table and the pause in Mr. Ellison's voice when he'd read the clause about the audio. I remembered the way he used to smoke his elbow when he was thinking, the small laugh that came out of him like a dog finding its favorite spot. I held to those tiny human things because they were proof he had been here, whole and complicated. The house smelled faintly of lemon oil and old paper, and in the quiet, I could almost hear his tools shifting in drawers he no longer opened. I promised myself I would not let them rewrite him. There were people in the house now, faces that smiled and made me wary. I fell asleep to the rain, my father's voice a small command in my head. And then, toward dawn, my phone buzzed with a message that would change the way the next morning breathed. The message came in at 5:42 a.m., when the sky was still the color of old pewter, and the world felt undecided about waking up. A single line from Mr. Ellison. I need you at the office first thing, bring the flash drive. No explanation, no greeting, just urgency. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone glowing against the dark like a lighthouse warning more than guiding. Rain tapped at the window, softer now, like someone gently insisting I pay attention. Down the hall, I heard movement, footsteps too careful to be casual. Veronica was awake. I slipped the flash drive into my pocket, feeling its outline like a heartbeat. Dad's voice was in there, his truth. And whatever complication had come up overnight, it had rattled the lawyer enough to break his usual formal tone. When I stepped into the hallway, Veronica appeared from the bathroom, robe tied neatly, hair pinned like she was preparing for a board meeting. Her eyes flicked to my coat, then to my bag. Heading out early? She asked, voice coated in that honeyed politeness she used when she wanted something. Yeah, I said. Meeting? At this hour? Her eyebrows lifted. Soft, concerned, false. I didn't answer. She didn't need my schedule, and she definitely didn't need to know where I was going. But as I reached the door, she spoke again, lightly, but with an undercurrent I didn't miss. You know, Mariah, Dad wanted things to be peaceful. I hope you're not doing anything to make this harder than it already is. I turned slowly. Peaceful for who? Her smile faltered. Let's just trust the process. Trust the process. People only said that when the process favored them. I stepped outside without another word. The morning air was cold enough to sting, sharp with the smell of wet grass and asphalt. My breath fogged as I walked to the car, each step grounding me back into my body. Dad used to say, when people start hiding things, listen harder. I was listening now. Mr. Ellison's office sat in a renovated brick building downtown, tucked between a florist and a tax shop that never seemed open. The lights inside his office were already on. Unusual for him. Through the frosted glass, I could see him pacing. When I knocked, he flinched before opening the door. Come in, quickly, he said. His suit jacket was still on the back of the chair, tie loosened. He looked like someone who hadn't slept. What's going on? I asked. He closed the blinds before speaking. There was an attempt to withdraw the original will from the court's file last night. My stomach dropped. Withdraw it? By who? I can't say yet, he said, rubbing his forehead. But someone used credentials they shouldn't have had access to. Thankfully, the clerk recognized the irregularity and flagged it. I exhaled shakily. Of course someone had tried to make the will disappear. Of course. Is the will safe now? Yes, it's under a protective seal. But the incident triggered a mandatory review. It means... He paused, choosing his words deliberately. It means the court will require all supplemental materials to be authenticated immediately, including your father's audio. I felt the flash drive heat in my pocket, as if it understood it was about to become a weapon. So that's why you called me. That's part of it, he said. There's something else. He reached into his desk and retrieved a different envelope. Larger, thicker, sealed with the kind of tape that never opens cleanly. This was mailed to me yesterday, he said, addressed in your father's handwriting. It arrived late. My fingers trembled as I took it. I recognized the slight slant, the way Dad wrote M like a mountain range. Inside was a letter. Not typed, not notarized, just ink and emotion. Mariah, if they try to take what I left you, don't be afraid of the truth. The truth is louder than money. Ellison knows what to do. Trust your instincts. You were always the bravest one. Dad? I blinked hard. His handwriting blurred, then returned. I'm sorry, Mr. Ellison said softly. I didn't want you reading that alone. I let the letter rest in my lap, its weight disproportionate to the paper. So, I whispered, someone really is trying to erase his intentions. The lawyer nodded once. And they'll likely try again. As I drove back, rain clouds thinned and the sun climbed over the rooftops, washing the street in pale gold. But inside me, shadows gathered. My stepfamily, the people who claimed to love Dad, who claimed to care about fairness, were trying to erase him. What scared me wasn't just the theft. It was the intimacy of it. To hide a will isn't just greed. It's rewriting someone's last words. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something immediately. Julian's car, parked crooked, engine still warm. He never woke before 10, never came by unannounced, never came alone. Inside, voices murmured, low, heated. I walked into the living room to find both of them there. Veronica stood with her arms folded, tension stiffening her shoulders. Julian paced like a trapped animal, jaw clenched so tight a pulse throbbed in his cheek. He stopped when he saw me. There she is, he said, tone sharp. The golden child. I set my keys down calmly. What are you two doing here? Veronica stepped forward. We need to have a conversation right now. I looked at her hand, the tightness with which she held her phone, as if waiting for a specific message. I'm not your child, I said quietly, and you don't get to summon me. Julian scoffed. Dad didn't know what he was doing at the end. He was confused, tired, barely coherent. Whatever he said on that recording, I froze. A slow, cold realization spread through me. They knew. They knew about the audio. How do you know anything about the recording? I asked, voice steady even as my heart hammered. They exchanged a glance, brief, guilty, telling. Veronica swallowed. Mariah, some things don't need to be made public. Families handle things privately. Privately. Like disappearing a will. Like rewriting a dead man's final wishes. I stepped back toward the doorway, gripping the flash drive inside my pocket. I'm going to the courthouse, I said. They're expecting the audio. Julian moved toward me fast. Too fast. You're not taking anything anywhere, he snapped. We're fixing this before it gets out of hand. His hand reached for my arm. I stepped away. What exactly are you trying to stop? I asked. My voice didn't shake. Theirs did. Veronica whispered something I couldn't hear. Julian's eyes darkened. And then a loud knock rattled the front door, hard enough to vibrate the floorboards. All three of us froze. Another knock. Then a voice. Mariah, it's urgent. Open up. It was Mr. Ellison. But the look on Veronica's face told me she knew exactly why he was here. And whatever he was about to say, it wasn't going to make any of us feel safer. Mr. Ellison's voice cut through the tension like a blade wrapped in cloth, sharp, but softened by urgency. Mariah, please open the door. Julian stiffened. Veronica's fingers curled around her phone, knuckles whitening. They looked like people who'd rehearsed a lie and were suddenly afraid of the truth arriving too early. I moved toward the door without asking permission from anyone in that room. When I opened it, Mr. Ellison stepped inside quickly, glancing over his shoulder as if he expected someone to be watching. His coat was still damp from the rain, and his jaw was tight in a way I hadn't seen before. "We need to talk," he said. Then his eyes shifted to Veronica and Julian. His tone cooled. "All of us?" Julian bristled. "We don't need a lawyer in our home at 7 in the damn morning." But Ellison didn't flinch. He set his briefcase on the table, unclasped it, and withdrew a single sheet of paper stamped with the court's emblem. "This was filed early this morning," he said. "A petition to challenge the will's validity, claiming your father was mentally unfit at the time of signing." My breath caught. I looked at my stepfamily. The shift in their eyes, the small, trembling exhale from Veronica. They'd done this. Of course they had. Julian crossed his arms, trying to look unfazed. "Anyone can file a petition. Doesn't mean it's true." "It does mean," Mr. Ellison replied, "that the probate judge has ordered the audio memorandum to be authenticated and reviewed today. In person. All beneficiaries mandatory." I felt the flash drive burn in my pocket again. Dad's voice, ready to walk into the room they'd avoided their entire lives. Veronica finally spoke, but her voice had lost its polished veneer. "This is unnecessary. We could have settled everything quietly, as a family." Mr. Ellison looked at her like someone studying a puzzle piece that didn't fit the picture. "Mrs. Turner," he said carefully, "the court has reason to believe evidence was tampered with, including attempts to access sealed documents unlawfully." The air shifted, sharp, electric. Julian's face drained of color. I scanned them both, waiting for the flicker of guilt that would betray them. It came quickly. Veronica's eyes locked on me, cold and desperate. "You don't understand what you're doing, Mariah." "No," I said softly. "I finally do." The ride to the courthouse was silent, except for the hum of tires on wet pavement. I rode with Mr. Ellison in his car. Veronica and Julian followed behind us in theirs, headlights glaring like accusations. Downtown was waking slowly, lights flickering on above storefronts, street vendors setting up tents, the smell of early morning cinnamon rolls drifting through cracked windows. But none of it reached me. My chest was a tight, careful vault holding everything I didn't have time to feel. "You need to prepare yourself," Mr. Ellison said quietly as we parked. "The audio, if it's as personal as you described, it will hit hard." I nodded. "I want them to hear it, every word." He studied me for a moment, his expression softening. "Your father knew you were strong. He made this recording for a reason." I looked out at the courthouse, tall columns, stone steps still slick from rain, the flag outside snapping sharply in the wind. A place built for the truth, whether people liked it or not. "Let's finish what he started," I whispered. Inside, the courtroom felt colder than the outside air. The fluorescent lights buzzed like restless bees. The benches creaked under old varnish, and the carpet smelled faintly of dust and old files. The judge hadn't arrived yet, but a clerk set up a small speaker on the evidence table. For the audio. For Dad. I sat in the front row, hands clasped tightly, the flash drive placed gently on the table like something sacred. Veronica and Julian entered a minute later. She wore a pearl necklace like armor. He wore a suit he clearly ironed in a rush. They sat opposite me, pretending calm, but their eyes kept darting to the flash drive. Fear looks different on wealthy people, quieter, but sharper. A door opened at the front of the room. The judge walked in, glasses perched on the edge of her nose, robe flowing behind her like a tide. She was stern, deliberate, not easily swayed. "Good morning," she said. "Let's begin." We stood, then sat. She read through the petition, the accusations, the claims Dad was not of sound mind, the implication that his final wishes were influenced. Each word chipped at my patience, but I stayed still. "That brings us," she said finally, "to the audio memorandum Mr. Turner recorded before his passing. It is to be played now." She nodded to Mr. Ellison. He approached the table, inserted the flash drive, and pressed play. A brief crackle, then, "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get to finish what I needed to say." Dad's voice filled the courtroom, deep, worn, gentle, in the way only a man who has carried both love and regret can sound. Julian inhaled sharply. Veronica's hand froze around her purse strap. Dad continued, "I know some folks around me have their own plans for my estate. I'm not blind. I see more than they think." Veronica's lips parted, a faint trembling gasp. "Mariah." His voice softened when he said my name. "You were the one who stayed, the one who listened, the one who kept this family from falling apart even when others created the cracks." Julian's head dropped. "I want no confusion about what I'm leaving and to whom. I want no secrets, no hidden papers, no edit made out of convenience." The judge eyed Veronica, who stared rigidly at the ground. "If anyone, and I mean anyone attempts to alter my wishes, this recording is to be used. Play it in front of them. Make them hear me." The words hung there, shaking the air. I swallowed hard, but tears still blurred the edges of my vision. Dad's voice continued, "I love all my children, even the ones who didn't always love me back. But love doesn't mean blindness." Julian's breath hitched. Veronica pressed a trembling hand to her cheek. Then the final blow. "The house goes to Mariah. The savings account, all of it, to Mariah. And the lake property, too. I want her to have a future steadier than the one I gave her." A stunned silence crashed over the room. Dad exhaled on the recording, a tired final sound. "If they try to fight this, let them. Just don't let them win." Then the recording clicked off. The judge folded her hands slowly. "Thank you. I've heard enough to proceed with my ruling, but before I do..." The back door of the courtroom burst open violently. A man stumbled in, clutching a folder. His eyes locked onto me, and the look he gave me was not anger. It was warning, urgent, terrified. "Mariah," he gasped, "you're in danger." The man's voice cracked through the courtroom like a snapped cable. Every head turned. The judge straightened. Veronica flinched so hard her necklace shifted against her collarbone. Julian muttered something under his breath, something sharp, panicked. The man stumbled forward, mid-40s, rain-damp jacket, eyes wide with the kind of fear people only carry when the truth is heavy enough to break them. "Sir," the judge said sternly, "you cannot enter my courtroom without..." But he cut her off, voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Your Honor, I had to. They wouldn't let me speak before. They tried to shut me up." His hands shook as he held the folder to his chest. Then he pointed directly at Veronica and Julian. "They're lying," he said. "They've been lying for months." My breath stalled. The room felt suddenly too still, like the air itself was listening. "Who are you?" the judge asked. The man swallowed hard. "My name is Derek Harris. I worked for Mr. Turner, her father." He gestured toward me. "I handled maintenance on the lake property. I saw things, I heard things, and I kept records because I knew nobody would believe me otherwise." He lifted the folder slightly, tapping it like a drumbeat. "That's why she stopped paying me," he said, eyes burning into Veronica. "That's why she threatened to handle me if I didn't stay quiet." Veronica shot to her feet. "That is a lie. He's a disgruntled ex-employee. He was fired for theft." "I was fired," Derek snapped, "because I walked in on you switching documents in your husband's office." A stunned hush collapsed over the courtroom. My pulse roared in my ears. "What documents?" the judge asked sharply. Derek took a shaky step forward. "The will," he said, or what looked like parts of it. I didn't know exactly what it was at the time, but they were arguing, both of them, saying the old man didn't know what he was doing, and that the estate needed to be corrected before he died. Julian's chair scraped loudly as he stood. "This is ridiculous." "Sit down," the judge ordered. Her voice was iron. He sat. Derek opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, handwritten notes, and security camera stills. He held up one sheet. "This," he said, "is a copy of an email your office received, Mr. Ellison. I intercepted it before she could delete it." Mr. Ellison's brow furrowed deeply. "What email?" Derek handed it to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge. She read aloud, "Keep the revised draft ready. We can say he wasn't lucid when he made the old one. If the girl finds out, it'll be too late." VT. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, a muffled, "Oh my God," from someone behind me. I stared at Veronica, her face draining of color, her fingers trembling as though holding on to something slipping fast. "That email is fabricated," she whispered. We need time to verify." But Derek wasn't done. "I have recordings too," he said. "From the lake house security system. They didn't know the cameras captured audio." Julian slammed his fist onto the table. "Why are we even listening to this? This man is blackmailing us." Derek laughed, a broken sound. "Blackmail? Man, I begged y'all to stop. I begged you not to do this to that girl. And what did you say?" His voice cracked. "Nobody's gonna believe a handyman over us." Silence, thick, humiliating. The judge exhaled slowly, pressing her palm to her forehead. "Mr. Harris," she said, "you're claiming that these individuals attempted to alter or destroy legal documents belonging to the deceased?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you have evidence?" He nodded, placing a USB drive on the clerk's table. "It's all on there." I felt my heart tightening, my body vibrating with something between rage and grief. Dad had known. He'd known exactly who he was dealing with. And he'd made the recording because, even dying, he'd been protecting me. The judge looked at Veronica and Julian. Her expression made the whole room lean in. "Do either of you wish to respond to these claims?" Veronica opened her mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. Julian finally spoke, voice cracking. "We were trying. Dad wasn't thinking clearly. We were trying to—" "Trying to what?" I said softly. My words sliced the space between us. "Trying to erase him, trying to rewrite me, trying to take everything he built?" He looked away. But the judge wasn't done. "Until I review all evidence," she said firmly. "The original will stands uncontested. And based on what I've heard so far, any attempt to remove, hide, or destroy it will be treated as felony fraud." Veronica visibly trembled. The judge continued. "The court orders an immediate suspension of these petitioners' access to estate documents, finances, and property until a full investigation is complete." Julian's jaw dropped. "You can't do that," he whispered. "I just did," the judge said. Then she turned toward me. "Ms. Turner, you are temporarily granted sole access to the primary estate assets until the investigation is resolved." I hadn't expected that. My lungs felt too small for my body. But Veronica wasn't finished. In a sudden burst of panic, she lunged toward the clerk's table, reaching for the USB drive Mr. Harris had brought. It happened in a blink. "Stop!" the bailiff yelled, but she was faster than anyone expected. Her fingers brushed the drive, and then a violent shove, a scream, the USB falling to the floor. Derek stumbled backward, catching himself on a bench. The judge slammed her gavel. "Mrs. Turner, step away from the evidence." Veronica froze. Her chest heaved. Her lipstick had smudged, her hands trembling uncontrollably. For the first time, she looked guilty, truly guilty. The bailiff retrieved the USB, placing it safely out of reach. The judge's voice cut through the chaos, low and lethal. "This court is in recess. We reconvene in 1 hour." She stood. The room dissolved into murmurs. I turned toward Derek, but he was already walking toward me. He lowered his voice. "There's something else you need to know," he said. "Something I didn't say in front of them." My stomach tightened. He glanced around, making sure Veronica and Julian were out of earshot. Then he leaned closer. "Your father left another recording," he whispered. "One they don't know about." The floor seemed to tilt under me. "Where is it?" I asked. He swallowed. "At the lake house," he said. "But you're not going to like what it says." My heart kicked against my ribs. "What's on it?" I whispered. He hesitated. Then, "Mariah, it's about what really happened the night your father collapsed." The words hit like a cold blade, and before I could speak, someone behind us cleared their throat. Slow, deliberate, Veronica. Her eyes were narrowed, her smile thin and poisonous. "So," she said quietly, "you're finally ready to hear the truth." Veronica's voice slipped into the space between us like poison sliding under a door. "So," she repeated, stepping closer, heels clicking with a confidence she didn't deserve, "you're finally ready to hear the truth." Derek stiffened beside me. I could feel the tension pulling through him like a wire straining under weight. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I turned to face her fully. "What truth?" I asked. Her expression shifted, not softening, not breaking, just revealing. The kind of look people get when the mask slips and there's no point picking it up again. "The truth about the night your father collapsed," she said. Her voice had a strange calm to it. Too calm. Derek stepped between us slightly. "Don't," he warned her. "Not here, not today." "Oh, please," she sneered. "You think I'm scared now? The damage is already done. Everyone thinks I'm the villain. May as well give them a reason." Her eyes locked onto mine, cold and sharp enough to draw blood. "I tried to protect this family," she said. "But your father?" She paused, swallowing her emotion like it was a bitter pill. "Your father made it impossible." The hallway outside the courtroom hummed with murmurs, footsteps, and the metallic echo of distant doors opening and closing. But her words cut through all of it. "What are you trying to say?" I whispered. This time her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was thin, almost pitying. "I think you already know." I took a slow step forward. "No," I said. "Say it." She exhaled sharply through her nose. "Your father didn't just collapse," she said. "He confronted us. That night, me and Julian." A tremor crawled through my chest. Derek closed his eyes, jaw tightening. He'd known. He'd held this truth alone for too long. "What did he confront you about?" I asked. Veronica tilted her head slightly. "You heard the audio," she said. "He knew we were planning to contest everything. He found out we'd been preparing alternative documents, drafts, possibilities." "Fraud," Derek said under his breath. "Options," she corrected sharply. "We were creating options because the man was losing his mind." I flinched at that. Even now, even cornered, she couldn't stop trying to rewrite him. "He wasn't losing his mind," I said. "You were losing control." Her jaw tightened. "That night," she continued, "he accused us of manipulating him, of circling like vultures. He shouted. He threatened to cut us out completely." "He did cut you out," I said. She laughed, a broken, humorless sound. "Yes, I realize that now." The hallway felt colder. Somewhere down the corridor, a door clanged shut. "What happened next?" I asked. Her eyes flicked to Derek, then back to me. "He got worked up," she said. "Angry, pacing, yelling. He said he was going to record everything, expose us, call you." Change every lock and code." Her voice trembled for the first time. And then he collapsed. She said it flat, emotionless, but the air around those words felt drenched in something unsaid. "You expect me to believe that was coincidence?" I asked quietly. She stepped closer, her perfume sharp and powdery, cutting through the stale courthouse air. "Believe what you want," she said, "but I didn't touch him. I didn't push him. Neither did Julian. He just fell." Her voice softened in a way that almost sounded real. "He hit the corner of the desk on the way down." My breath hitched. "That's why he had the bruise," I whispered. She blinked slowly. "Yes." The memory hit me hard. Seeing that bruise on Dad's temple in the hospital. Hearing her say he must have slipped in the bathroom. She'd lied to my face so easily. "So you hid the truth," I said. "Just like you hid the will." She didn't deny it. Instead, she exhaled shakily and pressed her thumb into her palm. "He was going to ruin everything," she said. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch someone destroy their own family because of paranoia?" "My father wasn't paranoid," I said. "He was right." She laughed, soft, bitter. "You sound just like him." Her gaze drifted past me, down the hallway where Julian lingered near the vending machines, pretending not to listen but clearly hanging on every word. "Julian didn't want things to go this far," she said. "He was scared, terrified. He worshipped that man." "And you?" I asked. Her lips tightened. "I respected him," she said quietly. "But he didn't respect me. Not the way he respected you." A knot formed in my throat. "I didn't want him to die," she continued. "Whatever you think, whatever you're imagining, I didn't want that. But when he fell, when he stopped breathing, I froze." She looked down at her hands. "Afterward, everything snowballed. The will, the drafts, the lawyers, the secrets. One lie became 2, then 10, then a whole story we couldn't control." Her breath quivered. "We didn't kill him, Mariah. We didn't." I stared at her, searching for truth in the cracks of her voice. She wasn't innocent, but she wasn't confessing to murder either. Still, something was missing. A piece that didn't fit. Derek finally stepped forward, his voice low. "Tell her the rest," he said. Veronica didn't move. "Veronica," he said again, firmer this time. "Tell her what he said before he collapsed." Her shoulders sagged. She looked up at me with eyes suddenly wet, not soft, but desperate. "He said your name," she whispered. "The last thing he said before he hit the floor was your name." My breath caught. "He said, 'Tell Mariah.'" Her voice cracked. "Tell Mariah I figured it out." Cold washed through me like a wave pulling back into the sea. "Figured what out?" I whispered. She shook her head. "He didn't get to finish." The silence that followed felt too loud. Then Derek spoke, his voice barely above a breath. "That's why we need to go to the lake house," he said. "The second recording. It explains what he figured out." My heart pounded. "What did he figure out?" I asked. Derek looked at me, a shadow passing through his expression. "Not here," he said. "Too many ears." Just then, the courtroom doors opened again. The bailiff stepped out. "Ms. Turner," he called. "The judge needs you inside." I swallowed hard. As I stepped forward, Veronica's hand brushed my arm. Not gripping, not pulling, just touching. "Be careful," she whispered. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a warning, a real one. I walked into the courtroom with my pulse pounding, and sitting on the judge's bench, placed neatly beside the files, was an envelope addressed in my father's handwriting. One I had never seen before. The envelope sat on the judge's bench like it had been waiting years just to be found. Thick, yellowed at the edges. My father's handwriting slanted across the front in bold ink. For Mariah, only when necessary. The judge adjusted her glasses as I approached, her expression unreadable. "This arrived in the court archives this morning," she said. "It was misfiled decades ago in a restricted section and only resurfaced after today's audit. Your father must have submitted it as a fail-safe." A fail-safe. Because Dad always planned 2 steps ahead, especially when he didn't trust the people around him. My hands trembled as I lifted the envelope. It was heavier than it looked. Paper shifted inside. Not just one sheet, multiple. Behind me, I could feel my stepfamily's presence like a storm cloud forming. Silent, charged, desperate. "Open it," the judge instructed gently. I took a slow breath, slit the top with my thumb. Inside was a letter and a small key taped to the last page. The sight of it made something cold slide down my spine. I unfolded the letter, and my father's voice began speaking in my head the moment my eyes hit the page. "Mariah, if you're reading this, then everything I feared has happened." My throat tightened. "I didn't want to burden you with suspicions while I was alive, but I've watched things unfold carefully, quietly, and I know now that something is terribly wrong." I swallowed hard. The room blurred around me as the words pulled me back into the past. Dad staring too long at his paperwork. Dad double-checking locks. Dad choosing silence over confrontation. I discovered discrepancies in my accounts. Missing funds, altered documents. And then I found proof. Something I hid at the lake house cabin. The judge leaned forward slightly, scanning the letter from where she sat. "I don't know how long I have. My health has been failing, but not in the way my doctor believes." My heartbeat stumbled. "Not in the way my doctor believes." I lifted my eyes slowly to Veronica. Her face was white as plaster, her breath thin. Dad continued, "I may not make it to the day I plan to expose everything. If something happens to me before then, assume it was not an accident. Assume I was silenced." A gasp broke behind me. Maybe Julian, maybe Veronica. But I couldn't turn around. Not yet. I kept reading. "This key opens a lockbox hidden in the cabin under the floorboard by the old cedar chest. Inside is a recording and files I gathered. The evidence they never wanted you to see." The courtroom thickened with tension. "If anything happens to me, go there. Take this letter with you. And don't go alone." I felt Derek shift behind me, like the weight of Dad's warning hit him too. The judge cleared her throat. "Ms. Turner, is that the end of the letter?" I looked down again. One more line, one that twisted my stomach into a tight burning knot. "And Mariah, trust the handyman. He's the only one who saw the truth." My head snapped up. Derek's eyes were glossy, fists clenched at his sides. I finally turned to face my stepfamily. Julian looked sick. Veronica looked broken, not scared, not angry. Broken. "He knew," I said quietly. "He knew everything." The judge held out her hand. "May I?" I passed her the letter. She read it in full silence, lips tightening with every line. When she finished, she folded the pages deliberately and set them beside her. "This," she said slowly, "changes the nature of this case entirely." She looked at Veronica first, then Julian, then Derek, finally, at me. "Given this new evidence, I'm formally ordering a criminal investigation into the death of Mr. Turner," she said. "Until its conclusion, all estate control will remain with Ms. Turner." A ripple of shock ran through the room, but the judge wasn't finished. "Ms. Turner," she said, her tone softening, "you will need to go to that cabin. The authorities will accompany you. But whatever your father left behind, it appears it was meant for you." My palm closed around the small key. It felt like a pulse, a living thing. Outside the courthouse, the wind had shifted. Clouds moved fast across the sky like the world was turning quicker than usual. Derek walked beside me in silence until we reached the steps. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm ready." He nodded. "We'll go together tomorrow, first light." I nodded back. Then I heard footsteps behind us. "Julian!" His voice cracked when he spoke. "Mariah, I didn't know, I swear to God I didn't know." I turned, searching his face for sincerity, and for the first time, I saw a scared kid. Not a manipulator, not a thief, just someone dragged along by someone stronger. "You still lied," I said softly. "You still helped hide everything." He nodded, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I didn't respond. Then Veronica stepped forward, alone, shoulders shaking. Her eyes were red, her composure shattered. "Your father," she whispered. He wasn't supposed to find out." "Find out what?" I asked. She hesitated, and the wind between us seemed to hold its breath. "That recording in the cabin," she said. "You think you're prepared for it, but you're not." I stood very still. "Why?" I asked. She looked away, tears slipping down her cheek. "Because it doesn't just expose what we did," she said. "It exposes who else was involved." My stomach twisted. "Who else?" She lifted her eyes to mine, and the answer she gave me was so soft. I almost missed it. "Someone you trust." The world tilted, and before I could form a single word, a car door slammed at the curb. An engine roared. A figure hurried away before I could see their face clearly. But Derek saw. His expression hardened. "That's them," he whispered. "That's who your father was talking about." I stared at the disappearing taillights, heart pounding in a way that felt dangerously familiar. The story wasn't over. Not even close. If you're still here, comment your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.